You in the city, man. You better perform that old young boy. Oh, bro. Shit.
People kept talking like, oh bro, it's whatever, but the streets weren't buying that for a second. New footage showing OBlock members pressing YNS and running down on anything tied to YoungBoy has been blowing up everywhere, especially after it forced him to cancel his whole Chicago show. He really thought he could step into the city and disrespect King Von on his own territory. But Chicago moved fast and made it clear why they call OBlock the Get Back Gang. This wasn't just noise. This was a reminder that some lines you don't cross, not even with fame behind you. But before all that chaos took over the internet, you gotta understand where the heat even started. This OBlock versus 4KT rivalry didn't just pop out of nowhere. It grew from years of pain, pride, and names that meant something heavy in their neighborhoods. When their worlds collided, it wasn't just rap beef. It became a nuclear spark that tied street history to rap culture in a way people still argue about every day. To understand why OBlock reacted the way they did, you need to understand what OBlock actually is. When people mention the deadliest blocks in hip-hop history, OBlock always comes up. Always. Officially known as Parkway Gardens. It sits on Chicago's south side, right off 64th and King Drive.
JC and Buck play with us, you put his body in the truck, then we take him to the dump. And they know we play for keeps, and they know that we ain't sweep. Grab a broom, we finna sweep. OBlock finna clean the streets. Boy, you better grab a heat or get put up on a tee.
To the outside world, it might look like just a group of low-income apartments. But inside the rap scene, it's a place with legendary weight. A place that shaped some of the most talked about artists and some of the darkest street stories. Some people even say it's the most infamous block in the entire country. But here's what makes the name hit even harder. OBlock didn't always exist as a nickname. The name came after the tragic murder of a young man named O.D. Perry back in 2011. He was 20. Well known and respected within the black disciples in that area. After his life was taken by rivals, the community honored him in a way that would last forever. They renamed Parkway Gardens OBlock for O.D. Perry, turning his name into a symbol, a warning, and a legacy that still echoes today. And from that moment on, the name OBlock carried a different kind of weight, especially once Chicago's drill wave exploded across the country. OBlock didn't just enter rap culture, it became the face of it. Chief Keef, Lil Reese, Fredo Santana. These weren't just artists dropping tracks. They were young men turning their neighborhood into a global symbol with nothing but raw truth and studio speakers. When Keef dropped Love Sosa and I Don't Like, it wasn't just music, it was a storm hitting the whole country at once. Millions of kids who never stepped foot in Chicago suddenly knew the name OBlock, knew the sound, and understood there was something deadly honest behind every lyric. These songs weren't polished hits. It sounded like someone opened a window into the trenches and let the world hear everything at full volume. It wasn't just entertainment, it was survival, danger, loyalty, and pain wrapped into 3-minute tracks that felt like warnings and stories all at once. The block's reputation grew fast, a place where too many brothers were lost to gun violence, but also a place where loyalty meant everything, even when loyalty came with scars. For better or worse, OBlock became a brand, a badge, and a symbol that the whole country kept watching. But if Chief Keef put OBlock on the map, King Von made the world never forget it.
Yeah,
Von
Rick and
embodied
Sean,
everything the
according
block
to
represented.
GBI, rapper
Sharp,
King Von and his
charismatic,
group were
respected,
at Opium nightclub before
unafraid to
making their
tell
way
his story
here
with
to
brutal
Monaco
detail.
Hookah Lounge, then
His
to the
Crazy
parking
Story
lot where
series didn't
chaos
sound like
ensued.
normal rap. It sounded like he was letting listeners sit in the passenger seat while he walked them through robberies, shootouts, and close calls in real time. Every bar felt like he was painting a picture you couldn't look away from. And Von didn't move alone. He had Lil Durk standing right beside him. Durk had been grinding since the earliest drill days, slowly shaping the OTF Only the Family movement into something powerful. While Von gave OBlock its sharpest, rawest voice, Durk became the megaphone that carried that voice around the world. By the late 2010s, Durk wasn't just a drill artist anymore. He had leveled up into a mainstream star. He was getting major industry cosigns, dropping hits with Drake, Future, and other big names. But even with all that success, he never stopped repping OBlock. That loyalty stayed stamped on everything he touched. And that's exactly why Von and Durk together were dangerous in the music world and the street world. Von brought that street-level intensity you could feel through the speakers, and Durk brought the reach, making sure the whole world heard it. Together, they turned OBlock from a neighborhood into a global story, and their loyalty to each other made that rise even louder. Durk always called Von his brother, his twin. That bond was real and everybody knew it. When Von blew up, he rose under the OTF umbrella, so disrespecting Von or OBlock wasn't the same as going at one person. It meant stepping into the ring with the entire OTF machine. Anyone bold enough to try that was basically asking for a whole movement to push back. But while OBlock was carving its name deep into Chicago's history, another force was rising far away in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, a force nobody could ignore. His name was Kentrell G, better known to the world as NBA YoungBoy, and his come-up was nothing but chaos, pressure, and raw emotion. His father got hit with a 55-year sentence, leaving him raised mostly by his grandmother, and by the time he hit his early teens, he was already bouncing in and out of juvenile detention. That kind of upbringing hardened him early, and it showed in his voice, his eyes, and every track he recorded. Through all that madness, YB found music, not as a hobby, but as a survival tool. By 2016, his 38 Baby mixtape caught fire out the gate. His raspy voice, explosive delivery, and unfiltered pain reminded listeners of early drill, but with a southern twist that made him stand out instantly. Y wasn't talking about luxury cars or champagne. He rapped about paranoia, confrontations, heartbreak, and pressure that most rappers only pretend to understand. Fans connected with that energy because it didn't feel manufactured, felt lived in and real. What made YoungBoy different was how raw he stayed. He never tried to look like an industry poster boy. He dropped tapes the way some people post updates, non-stop. And with every release, his following grew stronger and louder until it turned into a full-blown movement. Soon the memes started taking over the internet. YoungBoy better? It didn't matter who dropped an album. Fans would flood the comments with YoungBoy better, turning him into one of the most polarizing artists of his entire generation. But fame came with a dark shadow, constant drama, arrests, probation issues, beefs, and moments that kept him in headlines nonstop. If OBlock's identity was tied to loyalty, unity, and violence, YoungBoy's image became tied to chaos, unpredictability, and emotional volatility. He became the South's wild card, someone you couldn't predict and couldn't ignore. On paper, OBlock and YoungBoy seemed like opposites. One was a Chicago housing project with a long street legacy. The other was a rapper from Baton Rouge with a massive cult following. But in reality, they were almost reflections of each other. Both came from environments where nothing was promised, where survival was never guaranteed, and where every choice carried real consequences. And that connection is what eventually pushed them on a collision course. Both sides built their reputations on raw, uncut storytelling, turning pain into power in a way the world couldn't ignore. That's exactly what made their eventual clash so dangerous. Neither camp was built twofold, and neither camp believed in stepping aside. OBlock lived on loyalty and retaliation, while YoungBoy lived on standing tall through pressure. When those two mindsets crash into each other, you don't get peace, get a wildfire that refuses to burn out. The spark that ignited everything came on November 6, 2020, in Atlanta, a night that changed rap history forever. King Von crossed paths with Quando Rondo, one of YoungBoy's closest associates, outside a nightclub. Surveillance footage showed Von walking up and swinging first. And within just seconds, the whole scene erupted into pure chaos. Shots were fired, people scattered, and Lil Tim, a close associate of Quando, pulled the trigger that ended everything in one heartbreaking moment. King Von lost his life right there, and for OBlock, it was devastating. Their rising star, their narrator, their brother, was gone. And even though YoungBoy was nowhere near that scene, the streets and the internet tied his name to it instantly. Two fans and two OTF supporters, Quando was seen as his guy, his artist, a part of his circle, So in their eyes, Von's blood fell directly into YoungBoy's territory. The fallout was brutal. Social media lit up instantly with blame, memes, conspiracy theories, and narratives that ballooned the tragedy into something much bigger than just Von and Quando. Overnight, it became OTF versus NBA, OBlock versus YoungBoy, a rivalry loaded with emotion, loyalty, and pain. Lil Durk poured his grief straight into the booth, dropping sharp bars aimed at Quando and YoungBoy's camp, turning his pain into something the world could hear. Tracks like Backdoor, and later collabs with artists like Lil Baby carried a message, even when it wasn't. T said out loud Von wasn't T forgotten, and the beef wasn't buried. Meanwhile, YoungBoy acted exactly like the version of himself fans had come to expect, unpredictable. Some days he stayed silent, pretending none of the noise touched him. Other days, he let subliminals slip into his music or online presence, adding gas to a fire that was already out of control. The divide grew louder, wider, and deeper, until the whole situation became one of the most infamous rap rivalries of the modern era. And here's where the tension reaches today. OBlock has a long legacy of defending its name, no matter the danger. YoungBoy has a legacy of never backing down, no matter the odds. So when YB announced his tour and placed a date locked in for Chicago on September 24th, nobody saw it as just another concert. Fans didn't see tickets and lights. They saw two histories crashing into each other. Two worlds that were never meant to share the same room. To many, it looked like OBlock's pride versus YoungBoy's defiance, a showdown waiting to explode. Pain turned into fuel, and YoungBoy's defiance kept the rivalry alive, a rivalry years in the making, now speeding straight toward the spotlight. OBlock carried Von's legacy across the map like a badge. YoungBoy was sharpening his own blade through music, social media, and now a nationwide tour aimed right at Durk and anyone standing beside him. This wasn't just rap energy. This was strategy, tension, and pride crashing into each other. That brings us to the next chapter, the tour that has Chicago holding its breath. YoungBoy's upcoming tours isn't being treated like a regular set of shows at all. Every city, every announcement, every post feels like it's carrying a hidden message. Like he's testing the waters before making a statement bigger than just music. And the date everyone is circling? September 24th in Chicago, the most dangerous stop on the whole schedule. Now let's be real, YoungBoy hasn't been quiet about how he feels toward Durk, OBlock, or anybody tied to them. If anything, he's been louder than ever, whether it's through his tracks or social media. Why he keeps firing off the kind of lines that make this tour feel less like a celebration and more like he's stepping into enemy territory to prove a point. You can't ignore that energy. Take his track, Bring the Hook, where he rapped, and then this Squid Game OBlock pack gets rolled up. That one single bar sent shockwaves everywhere, turning OBlock's name into national headlines and sparking outrage that hasn't cooled off since. And what did YB do after the backlash? Nothing, because he didn't walk anything back. If anything, every time people expect him to chill, he hits the gas again. And it's not just in the songs. His social media presence this year has been wild. He's been posting mysterious captions, dropping pictures with messages between the lines, and even rocking green bandanas that fans instantly link to his Never Broke Again movement and its ongoing tension with OTF. Every post feels like a pressure point, like he's pushing buttons on purpose to remind people he's not folding to anybody. Meanwhile, Lil Durk has been doing his part to keep the rivalry alive too. His 7,220 project has some slick lines that fans swear are aimed at YB. And on stage, he sometimes lets a few sharper shots slip out. Durk isn't the type to drag things out online, but when he speaks through the music, everybody pays attention. Their back and forth hasn't slowed down even a little, and the fan bases, they're deep in it. Scroll through any comment section under a Durk or YoungBoy post, and it looks like a digital war zone, arguments, theories, jokes, and straight-up heated debates. Both sides stand strong behind their favorites, and it's turned every upload into a battleground of opinions, energy, and tension that never dies down. Now here's where everything gets even more tense. YoungBoy didn't just throw random darts on a map and pick cities for his tours. He locked in Chicago on purpose, and anyone who knows this rivalry could feel it instantly. To the outside world, that might look normal, since Chicago is one of the biggest rap markets in the country. But to people who understand the history, it felt like Y was saying, "Yeah, I'll step right into your backyard loud and clear." That move alone sent shockwaves through the fan base. The announcement instantly sparked reactions everywhere. Some fans were hyped to finally see YB perform live, but others immediately pointed out the danger, real danger.
Ow.
Chicago is not neutral ground for YoungBoy. It's Durk's territory, OTF's territory, and most importantly, OBlock's territory. And anyone who's followed YB's career knows he doesn't treat concerts like simple shows. He treats them like messages delivered through lights, visuals, and the energy he walks in with. There were times he showed up in bulletproof gear, times he dropped subliminals from the stage. His shows always meant something. That's why this Chicago stop doesn't feel innocent at all. It feels intentional, like he's making it clear he's not backing down from OBlock. OTF for anybody who thinks they can scare him off. As the tour date creeps closer, one question keeps hanging in the air heavier than anything. Is September 24th going to be just another YoungBoy performance? Or the night all this internet smoke finally breaks into reality? Because YB is sending shots from the stage, but OBlock isn't just watching from the sidelines either. In fact, some OBlock members started claiming they'd be right there at the show. And that's when this whole situation took a darker turn. Once news of YoungBoy's Chicago stop went public, OBlock affiliates didn't stay quiet, not even for a minute. On Instagram Live and comment sections and street interviews, they were openly talking and not in a playful way. One OBlock YN member even went viral after saying, "We bought VIP passes to the show," and that's the line that made the internet explode. Whether it was trolling, flexing, or a real plan, fans understood exactly why that statement was scary. With everything that happened between Vaughn, YB, and the two camps, words like that aren't just jokes. They sound like a setup waiting to unfold. A warning shot disguised as a flex. The chatter didn't stop there, not even close. More and more OBlock affiliates began hinting that they planned to welcome YoungBoy the moment he touched down in the city, and the tone wasn't friendly at all. Others reposted memes mocking the idea of YB performing in Chicago without something going down. Before long, fan pages, blogs, and YouTube channels jumped on every screenshot, every joke, every quote, until the whole situation grew way bigger than it probably needed to be. And that's the dangerous part. It doesn't take much for online talk to spill into real-life problems. One IG Live, a few screenshots, one repost, and suddenly thousands of people became convinced OBlock had something major planned for September 24th. And like always, OBlock's reputation only amplified the tension. For years, the block has been portrayed as one of the deadliest places in America. Documentaries, drill tracks, interviews, all painting it as a place where stepping wrong can have real consequences. So when their affiliates start openly talking about pulling up on YB, fans don't just shrug it off, they believe it. Meanwhile, YoungBoy's supporters are firing right back, saying OBlock is bluffing, chasing attention off YB's name, trying to look tougher than they are. Some insist nobody is bold enough to make a move inside a high-security concert venue. But others quickly remind them that hip-hop history is full of shows that turned violent backstage fights, confrontations in dark hallways, parking lot chaos after the lights go down. Nothing is impossible when emotions run hot. The debate grew so loud that fans started questioning the safety of the entire show. Will security even allow YB to perform without extra reinforcements? Will the venue increase police presence? Will the city itself step in and shut the show down before something happens? Or will the pressure and threats force the show to be canceled altogether? The uncertainty is what's making this whole situation blow up even more. Because even though the concert still hasn't happened, the storyline feels like it's unfolding in real time, like a live countdown. YoungBoy's enemies watching his every move, his supporters defending him in every comment section, and everybody else sitting on the sidelines waiting to see if all the talk finally turns into action. And that brings us into the final countdown. With September 24th creeping closer every day, Chicago feels like the whole city is holding its breath. Is this going to be the riskiest concert of the year? Or is this the biggest bluff OBlock has ever thrown out to test YoungBoy's pride? Countdown to September 24th, explosion or bluff. And here's where things cross into dangerous territory. September 24th isn't just another concert date anymore. Not in the minds of fans, not in the streets, not online. It's circled like a heavyweight fight night, the kind where both sides walk into the ring knowing the energy is already charged. Because when YoungBoy locked Chicago into his tour, he wasn't just planning a show, he was stepping straight into enemy ground, and everybody knows it. Social media hasn't let a single drop of this slide, not one. Some fans are hyping this up like the ultimate showdown, comparing it to when 50 Cent dared Ja Rule to meet him on stage back in the day. Others are calling it smoke and mirrors, saying OBlock would never risk everything by making a move in front of thousands of people, cameras, security, and law enforcement. But then there's the darker side of the chatter, the screenshots, the rumors, the so-called OBlock affiliates claiming they already grabbed VIP tickets. Tweets started floating around warning that it's gone nah be up. If YB touches that stage, and even if half of it is just talk, the idea alone has created one of the tensest countdowns the rap game has seen in years. This ISNT, the usual fan speculation. This feels like everybody is waiting for something explosive to happen. And YoungBoy hasn't cooled anything down at all. Instead of backing away from the fire, he's been tossing gas straight onto it. He's been dissing Durk mid-tour, dropping cryptic posts online, and making it clear he's not avoiding anybody or anything. That kind of energy is exactly why fans are split. Some think September 24th could be the biggest victory of his entire career, while others feel like it could turn into a moment that goes wrong fast. And you can't ignore the bigger picture. Chicago police are watching all of this. They're not blind to the tension online. Security that night is guaranteed to be intense metal detectors, undercover officers, heavy patrol, and maybe even federal eyes in the building. Because if anything goes down, it stops being a rap beef immediately and becomes a national headline. Another debate about violence and hip-hop and the risks behind these rivalries. So here's the question everybody keeps arguing about. Are we about to witness a historic night in rap? Something people talk about for years? Or is this just a giant bluff? A war fought with tweets, captions, and lyrics instead of real danger? With every day closer to September 24th, the tension only gets heavier. Fans aren't even just looking for a concert anymore. They want to see if YoungBoy really walks straight into the lion's den, or if OBlock truly plans to stand on the threats their people hinted at online. And when you put this many eyes on one night, one stage, and one city, it only takes a single spark, just one, for everything to erupt in ways nobody can predict. Which leaves us right here, stuck in the middle of a countdown nobody can escape. September 24th is locked in. The threats are still floating in the air like smoke, and YoungBoy is still standing tall, like he's daring anybody to test him. But the question hanging over everything is simple. Will this end in nothing but loud talk, or will somebody push it into real danger? Ain't that's the part keeping everybody glued to this story? So here we are, the calm before the storm. The internet swore up and down they saw new footage of OBlock YNs attacking YoungBoy on stage. Clips being shared everywhere, but let's be real, all that was rumors and recycled edits. What's actually real is the countdown to September 24th, the night YB is scheduled to walk straight into Chicago. The center of the territory tied to Durk, OTF, and the legacy of King Von. And that's what makes this moment feel so wild. On one side, you've got YB fearless, defiant, refusing to back down, turning every stage he touches into something that feels like a battlefield filled with subliminals and energy. On the other side, you've got OBlock, a name tied to Von's memory, Chicago's street history, and Durk's empire. These aren't just two random names. These are two forces that have been circling each other for years, building pressure with every diss, every rumor, and every headline. They're lined up on a collision course, and nobody knows which way it'll go. Will it explode into chaos? Or will it all fade out as another rap feud that never leaves the internet? Nobody can call it yet. But one thing is guaranteed. When that spotlight hits the stage in Chicago, every camera will be aimed at one man. Every fan will be holding their breath, and every headline will be ready to jump. Because if anything, even the smallest thing goes down on September 24th, it won't be remembered as a regular show. It'll be remembered as a moment that stamped itself into rap history forever. And whether it ends in peace or pressure, the world will be watching. The countdown is almost over. The stage is set. The tension is real. And on September 24th, Chicago 1T just be hosting a concert. It'll be hosting a moment that decides how this entire story gets written in the books.